Good morning. Oh, okay, so today is section 45 verses 56 through 66. Again. Sorry, still just talking about the second coming and signs of the times and preparation, things like that. But he mentions another parable, the parable of the 10 virgins. And again, it's a parable about preparation. There's not a lot here that I want to talk about. There's plenty on the parable of the 10 virgins in the Ludlow, but it's such basic that we already know these things. We already know them. So I'm not going to get into them. But they said something in the podcast, which I vaguely remember because it's nearly 7 days ago. But when Hank Smith teaches this in his class, he finds somebody who's recently been married or is going to be married, says, is your best friend, who's your best friend? Are they coming to your wedding? And they're like, of course. And then he said something like, well, what if they just didn't show up? And she was like, they'd say something like, well, I'd understand if they couldn't make it. And it's like, well, what if she could make it, she just didn't want to? And then they're like, oh, well, that would be bad. I'd be sad. I'd be hurt. And then he compares that to this parable, how the Savior feels if we just decide not to show up. And they talk about the Savior's second coming as his big day. And it's interesting to think of it in that light. It's like his great return, his triumphant, this is what's been talked about for centuries, and it's coming, and he's excited, and suffering's going to be over now, and Satan's going to be bound, and we just decide not to show up, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Oh, and in these verses, he also says now to start translating the New Testament, so that the saints can be prepared for things to come. So more is on the way, which obviously we know this, but, they're like, okay, how much more? A lot's happened so far, and a lot more is coming. So that's basically it for these verses. I know. Super lame. Anyways, what can you expect on a day I have to wake up early and go to work? Anyways, that was section 45, verses 56 through 66. And we will see you tomorrow.